The town rested beside a slow brown river that carried the smell of iron and wet earth through streets that felt half forgotten. Travelers on the highway passed without turning their heads because nothing here asked to be seen. Paint peeled from old storefronts. Windows reflected only sky. And silence held the corners where laughter once lived. 50 years earlier, the same streets had been bright with neon and late-night music drifting from a roadside diner where truck drivers shared stories and teenagers dreamed about leaving. Back then the town believed tomorrow would always come. Back then no one imagined a single night could freeze time in place. On a cool autumn morning in the present day, a woman named Aloan Hale stepped down from a long-distance bus carrying one small suitcase and a folder pressed tightly against her chest. She paused as her shoes touched the cracked sidewalk as if the ground might remember her weight. Wind pushed dry leaves across the empty road, and the sound seemed louder than it should in a place this quiet. Aloan had promised herself she would never return. For most of her life she treated this town like a door that must stay closed. Because behind that door waited the last moment she had seen her mother alive. Yet she was here again, breathing the same river air and feeling the same distant unease. All because of a voice she had never heard before. 3 weeks earlier a small package arrived at her apartment in another state. No return address. No postage stamp she recognized. Only her name written in slow, careful letters. Inside the box rested a cassette tape wrapped in yellowing newspaper and a short note folded once. The paper smelled faintly of dust and something older like time sealed away. The note contained a single sentence. "It is time the silent witness speaks. Come home before the truth is buried again." At first she believed it was meant for someone else, or perhaps a cruel reminder sent by a stranger who knew too much. But the newspaper date stopped her breath. 1976. The same year everything in her life shattered into before and after. She had been 6 years old. Young enough to believe adults could fix anything. Old enough to remember flashing red and blue lights painting her bedroom walls like broken fireworks. Old enough to remember neighbors whispering in kitchens and hallways then falling quiet when she entered. Most of all, she remembered her mother leaving the house one evening saying she would return soon. A simple promise. A short walk. A moment that never ended. For decades the disappearance remained unsolved. A word that sounded calm and official yet carried the weight of endless questions. No arrest. No clear suspect. Only rumors that faded with time. People in town slowly learned not to mention it. New families arrived who never knew the story. Old witnesses moved away or passed on. Records slipped into dusty storage rooms where paper curled at the edges. Aloan grew older with questions that had nowhere to rest. She left as soon as she could. Different cities. Different work. Different friends. Each change an attempt to step beyond memory. She told herself survival meant silence. Some truths stayed hidden because digging them up only deepened the wound. She built a careful life far from the river and the empty streets. Then the tape arrived and silence cracked open. For several days she refused to play it. The cassette sat on her kitchen table beside unopened mail. Each night she walked past pretending not to see. Because pressing play meant allowing the past to breathe again. On the 7th night rain touched the apartment windows with a soft, steady rhythm. The room felt smaller. The air heavier. Her hands trembled as she searched a drawer for an old cassette player she had not used in years. Plastic clicked as the tape slid into place. For a moment nothing but static filled the room. A thin whisper like wind moving through distant branches. Then a voice emerged. Faint. Elderly. Carrying the slow weight of years. I saw what happened that night. Aloan felt the sound move through her chest like sudden cold. She leaned closer, afraid the voice might vanish. The speaker paused to breathe. They told me to stay quiet. They said truth would destroy this town. But silence destroyed more. Another pause longer this time. Fragile breathing filling the empty space. If you are hearing this, you deserve to know. The recording ended. No name. No explanation. Only unfinished truth hanging in silence. She did not sleep. Morning arrived pale and distant. By noon she had packed a suitcase without fully deciding to do so. By evening she had purchased a bus ticket back to the place she once escaped. And now she stood again beneath a grey sky where memory felt close enough to touch. Across the street, the old diner still stood, though the neon sign no longer glowed. Brown paper covered the windows and dust softened every shape inside. She remembered sitting in a booth swinging her small feet while her mother laughed with the waitress. That laughter felt impossibly far away, like sound carried underwater. A pickup truck rolled past slowly. The driver watched her a moment too long. In small towns, strangers were noticed, especially strangers who looked like echoes of someone once known. Aloan began walking toward the only building that showed signs of life. The public library. Brick walls darkened by time. Tall windows reflecting the pale morning. Wooden doors polished by careful hands. This was the last place her mother had been seen. For years, even photographs of this building felt unbearable. Now something stronger than fear pulled her forward. Something like unfinished time asking to be faced. Inside, the air smelled of paper and quiet patience. Shelves stretched beneath warm yellow lights. A ceiling fan turned slowly above the front desk where an elderly man arranged returned books with gentle precision. The door closed behind her with a soft sound. The man looked up. His eyes rested on her face, not with surprise but recognition. "You came back," he said in a calm voice. A chill moved through her. She had not spoken her name. He studied her features as if comparing them to a memory stored long ago. Then he gave a small knowing nod. I wondered how long it would take. Her voice felt unsteady. "Did you send the tape?" He did not answer at once. Instead, he gestured toward a reading table near the window where light gathered softly. "Some stories should not be spoken standing up," he said. They sat across from each other. Dust drifted between them in slow, silent motion. After a moment, he reached into a drawer and placed an old photograph on the table. Edges worn. Surface faded. The image showed the library entrance many years earlier. Police tape across the doors. Neighbors gathered in worried clusters. And near the center, a young girl holding the hand of a woman just outside the frame. Aloan recognized herself instantly. The small coat. The frightened posture. But the woman beside her appeared blurred by motion, as if the camera failed to keep her from disappearing. "Your mother trusted someone in this town," the man said quietly. "Someone who kept the truth hidden." Her heartbeat rose. "Who?" The man met her eyes with deep sadness. "The only witness who never spoke." Silence settled again, yet this silence felt alive. Waiting. Listening. Far beyond the buildings, a train horn sounded along the river line. Long and low, like a warning carried through decades. Aloan understood then that her return was not chance. Someone had waited 50 years. Someone believed the past could still change the present. She looked once more at the blurred shape of her mother caught between presence and absence. If the silent witness was finally ready to speak, one question remained. Why now? And what truth had been hidden for half a century? The photograph remained between them on the table like a door that refused to close. Aloan kept her eyes on the blurred shape of her mother because looking at the old man felt harder. Questions pressed against her thoughts faster than she could shape them into words. The library was quiet in the way only small-town buildings could be. Not empty, but holding sound gently so even a breath seemed important. "Who is the witness?" she finally asked. The old man folded his hands as if steadying something fragile inside himself. For a long moment he watched the slow-turning fan above them. When he spoke, his voice carried the careful weight of someone who had waited too long. "Not who," he said softly. "What?" A chill moved through her shoulders. She did not understand, yet some part of her already feared the answer. He slid another object across the table. A thin folder yellow with age. Her fingers hesitated before touching it. Inside were newspaper clippings. Black and white photographs. Typed police notes with faded ink. Every page circled the same date. October 14, 1976. "The night your mother disappeared," he said. Aloan swallowed slowly. She had spent years avoiding details. Now the past unfolded in quiet paper layers beneath her hands. One clipping described the last confirmed sighting. A librarian locking the front doors after closing. A neighbor across the street noticing nothing unusual. A calm evening with cool air and early darkness. Another article mentioned a sound heard near the river path later that night. Not a scream. Not clear enough to describe. Only something strange enough to remember. Police searched the water, the woods, empty buildings along the rail line. Days turned into weeks, weeks into silence. No evidence of struggle. No body. No reason. Just absence. Aloan felt the familiar hollow space open inside her chest. She had carried this emptiness since childhood, but seeing it written so plainly made it feel colder. She turned another page and stopped. A photograph of the library interior, taken during the investigation. Shelves pushed aside. Floorboards exposed near the back reading room. Why were they searching the floor, she whispered. The old man's eyes lowered. Because someone said there might be something hidden beneath. Her heartbeat quickened. Did they find anything? No. Nothing they understood. He leaned closer, his voice quieter. But they were searching the wrong place. Silence stretched between them. Outside, a car passed slowly, tires whispering on pavement. Aloan felt anger rise unexpectedly. 50 years of confusion. 50 years of silence. All sitting in this quiet room as if time had done nothing. If you know something, she said, her voice tight. Why wait until now? The question hung sharp in the air. The old man did not look offended. Only tired. Because the witness could not speak before. And because the people who demanded silence were still alive. Her breath caught. Still alive. He nodded once. Small towns protect their stories. Sometimes more fiercely than truth. Aloan looked down at the folder again. Every page suddenly felt heavier. So what changed? The old man's gaze drifted toward the tall shelves lining the far wall. Rows of books older than both of them. Spines faded by decades of quiet waiting. Time changed. And guilt grows louder when the world becomes quiet enough to hear it. He reached into his pocket and removed a small metal key. Its surface dull with age. This opened a storage room beneath the library long ago. A room sealed after the investigation. Her pulse thudded in her ears. Sealed why? Because no one wanted to keep searching. He placed the key beside the photograph. Yesterday, the town council approved renovations. Workers will open the lower level tomorrow morning. The words settled slowly into her mind. Tomorrow. 50 years of silence ending with construction dust and new paint. What is down there, she asked. The old man met her eyes. Memory. The single word felt larger than the room. Aloan leaned back in her chair, trying to steady her breathing. Part of her wanted to run. To leave the folder closed. To return to the careful life she had built far away. But another part, stronger and older, refused to move. If the silent witness was hidden beneath this building, then walking away now would mean choosing silence herself. She closed the folder gently. Why send the tape to me? Because truth belongs to the one who lost the most, he said. Emotion tightened her throat. She had spent years believing the town forgot her mother. Forgot her. Yet here sat someone who remembered everything. Who recorded the voice she asked. A friend. Someone who carried regret longer than fear. Is that person still alive? The old man's answer came slowly. For now. The uncertainty in those words felt like a clock ticking somewhere unseen. Aloan looked around the library. Sunlight shifting across shelves. Dust turning in soft circles. Nothing about the room suggested secrets buried beneath. And yet she felt something waiting. Not dangerous, but patient. What happens when they open the room tomorrow, she asked. The truth will either rise or disappear forever. His calm tone made the choice feel real. Immediate. You believe there is proof down there. I believe silence was built on something solid. She stood and walked slowly toward the back of the library, each step echoing faintly. Her eyes searched the floor, remembering the photograph of exposed boards. Near the far wall, a section of wood looked slightly newer than the rest. Different grain. Different color. She knelt, touching the surface lightly. Cool. Unmoving. Ordinary. Yet her heart raced as if standing near a hidden edge. Behind her, the old man spoke again. Your mother loved this place. She believed knowledge protected people. Aloan kept her hand on the floor. Did it? His answer came after a long pause. Sometimes truth needs more than belief. She closed her eyes, briefly imagining her mother walking these same steps, locking the doors, thinking only of home, never knowing the night would erase everything. Grief moved through her, not sharp but deep like water rising slowly. When she opened her eyes again, the room felt different. Not just a library, but a space holding unfinished words. She stood and faced him. "I will be here tomorrow." He nodded as if he expected nothing less. Good. Outside clouds had begun to gather thick and grey. The light through the windows dimmed, turning the shelves into long shadows. Aloan picked up the photograph and folder, holding them close. Proof that the past was no longer distant. As she walked toward the exit, she felt the same uneasy pull she had known as a child. The sense that something unseen watched quietly from the edges of memory. At the door she paused. "If the truth comes out," she said softly, "will it destroy this town?" The old man's expression held both sorrow and hope. Truth does not destroy, but lies often do. She stepped outside into the cooling afternoon. Wind carried the smell of rain from the river. The street remained mostly empty, yet nothing felt still anymore. Tomorrow the sealed room would open. Tomorrow the silent witness might finally speak. For the first time in 50 years the past was moving. And Aloan realized something that unsettled her more than any secret. If the truth had been hidden to protect someone, then revealing it might place her in danger now. Because silence had lasted half a century. And people who protect silence rarely give it up peacefully. Night arrived slowly over the town, as if darkness itself felt uncertain about returning. Clouds covered the moon, and the river moved like a strip of black glass beyond the silent buildings. Streetlights flickered on one by one, casting pale circles that did not quite reach the ground. Aloan walked without choosing a direction. Her suitcase rested in a small rented room above a closed hardware store, yet staying inside felt impossible. Too many thoughts pressed against her chest. Too many memories waking after years of forced sleep. Every corner of the town carried an echo. A place where laughter once lived. A doorway where neighbors once stood talking about ordinary days. All of it unchanged and completely different at the same time. She passed the old diner again. In the darkness, the paper-covered windows looked almost soft, like hidden eyes refusing to see. For a moment she imagined warm light inside. The sound of dishes. Her mother's voice calling her name. The image faded quickly, leaving only silence. A cold wind moved down the street and she wrapped her coat tighter. Returning here had always been her deepest fear. Not because of what she remembered, but because of what she never knew. Now the unknown was closer than ever. Waiting beneath the library floor. Waiting for morning. She kept walking until the buildings thinned and the smell of water grew stronger. The river path stretched ahead, lined with bare trees whose branches scratched softly against each other. This was the place mentioned in the old newspaper clipping. The place where someone heard a strange sound on the night everything changed. Her steps slowed. Instinct told her to turn back, but something quieter and stronger pulled her forward. Gravel shifted under her shoes. The dark water moved beside her, carrying reflections that broke apart with every ripple. Somewhere far away a train horn sounded low and lonely. She tried to imagine the night 50 years earlier. Cool air. Early darkness. Her mother walking home thinking only of ordinary things. Did she feel watched? Did she sense danger? Or did the moment arrive without warning, the way storms sometimes form in clear sky? Aloan stopped near a bend in the path where trees grew closer together. The shadows felt deeper here. Sound felt softer. Her heartbeat quickened, though nothing moved. Then she noticed something small near the ground. Half hidden in dirt beside an old wooden bench. A metal object dull with rust. She knelt, brushing soil away with careful fingers. It was not large. Only a simple pendant shaped like a narrow oval. The chain long gone. Her breath caught. She had seen this before. Not in photographs. In memory. A faint image of her mother fastening the pendant before leaving the house. A small, ordinary habit from a life that once felt safe. Hands trembling, she turned it over. On the back, faint letters still visible beneath rust. A single initial. The same initial as her mother's name. For a moment the world felt unsteady. as if time folded inward, connecting past and present in one fragile point. How had this remained here, hidden yet untouched for half a century, unless someone placed it here later? The thought sent a chill through her. Proof did not stay lost this long by accident. She closed her hand around the pendant, holding it tightly. Emotion rose sudden and sharp. Not only grief, but something closer to anger. Someone knew more than they ever said. A sound behind her broke the silence. Soft, quick, like a step stopping too late. Aloan turned sharply. Her eyes searched the darkness between trees. Nothing moved. Only branches swaying slightly in the wind. She listened, breathing shallow, waiting. For several seconds the world held still. Then far down the path a figure appeared beneath a weak streetlight. Too distant to see clearly. Standing without moving. Fear pressed cold against her ribs. Instinct whispered run. But her feet remained fixed. The figure did not approach. Did not speak. Only watched. Wind lifted loose gravel across the path with a faint hiss. When she looked again, the figure was gone. No footsteps. No sound of retreat. Just emptiness. Her pulse pounded loud in her ears. This was no memory. Someone knew she had returned. Someone was already watching. She rose slowly, forcing herself to breathe. The pendant felt heavy in her closed hand. Staying here alone suddenly felt dangerous in a way memory never had. She turned back toward town, walking faster than before. Each shadow now felt alive. Each distant sound too close. By the time the first buildings appeared, her lungs ached from holding tension. Light from a single open gas station spilled across the road, offering small comfort. She did not stop until she reached her rented room and locked the door behind her. Only then did she allow her shoulders to shake. The past was no longer quiet. It was moving, watching, waiting. She placed the pendant on the small table near the bed. Under the dim lamp, its rusted surface looked fragile yet undeniable. If this truly belonged to her mother, then the river path was not only memory. It was evidence, which meant tomorrow might reveal more than secrets. Tomorrow might reveal danger. Sleep came in broken pieces filled with half-formed dreams. Flashing lights. Water moving in darkness. A voice trying to speak through silence. Before sunrise she woke with the same tight feeling in her chest. Outside, the sky carried the pale color of approaching morning. Today the sealed room would open. She dressed quickly, her hands unsteady but determined. The pendant rested safely in her coat pocket close to her heart. When she stepped onto the street, the town felt different from the day before. Not awake, but aware. A truck parked near the library. 2 workers unloading tools. Normal sounds of renovation. Yet nothing felt ordinary. The old man stood near the entrance, speaking quietly with them. When he saw her, he gave a small nod of recognition mixed with concern. "You found something last night," he said softly. She hesitated only a moment before showing the pendant in her palm. His breath caught almost silently. "I remember this," he whispered. "Where?" she asked. "Near the river path." Fear moved through his eyes, not surprise. As if this discovery confirmed something he long suspected. "Then we are already too late," he said. The words struck her cold. Too late for what? Before he could answer, one of the workers called out, saying they were ready to open the lower level. The moment had arrived. Aloan felt time narrow around her. Every question, every memory, every year of silence leading to this single doorway. The old man guided her inside, past the quiet shelves, toward the back wall where the floorboards looked newer than the rest. The workers had already removed part of the wood, revealing a dark opening beneath. Cold air drifted upward, carrying the smell of dust and something older. A narrow staircase descended into shadow. No one spoke for several seconds. Aloan realized her hands were shaking again. Not from fear alone, but from the weight of standing at the edge of truth. If something waited below, it had waited 50 years. The old man looked at her gently. "You do not have to go down." She met his eyes steady despite the storm inside her. "Yes, I do. Because whatever silence protected, it also stole an entire lifetime." She stepped toward the opening, each movement slow but certain. Darkness waited below like a closed memory finally breaking open. And somewhere deep inside she felt a quiet certainty. When she reached the bottom, nothing in her life would ever be the same again. The staircase was narrower than Aloan expected. Each wooden step gave a soft tired sound beneath her weight as if no one had walked there for many years. Cold air pressed upward, carrying the smell of dust sealed away from light and time. Above her the opening framed a pale square of morning. Below her waited shadow thick and unmoving. She kept one hand against the rough wall, steadying her breath. Every step downward felt like moving deeper into the night that had taken her mother. Deeper into a silence older than memory. When her shoes finally touched the ground below, she paused. The room was small. Stone walls. Low ceiling crossed with dark beams. A single hanging bulb the workers had switched on cast weak yellow light that could not reach the corners. Dust floated slowly in the air, disturbed for the first time in decades. Wooden crates lined one wall. Old shelves leaned under the weight of forgotten records. Nothing looked important. Nothing looked like truth. For a brief moment fear whispered that this would all end in emptiness. That 50 years of waiting would reveal nothing but dust. Behind her the old man descended carefully, followed by one worker who remained near the stairs. No one spoke. Even breathing sounded too loud. Aloan moved farther into the room, her heart beating slow and heavy. She did not know what she expected to find, only that something had been hidden here on purpose. Near the far wall she noticed a section of stone slightly different in color. Not newer, but disturbed long ago, then left to age. She stepped closer, kneeling, running her fingers across the uneven surface. The texture changed beneath her touch. One stone shifted slightly under gentle pressure. Her breath caught. Someone had opened this before. She looked back at the old man. His face had gone pale, but he nodded once as if telling her to continue. Carefully she pressed again. The stone loosened, sliding outward with a dry grinding sound that echoed through the small room. Behind it was darkness. Not empty space. A narrow hollow hidden inside the wall. Her hands trembled as she reached inside. Dust coated her skin. Cobwebs clung like fragile threads of time. Her fingers touched something solid, wrapped in cloth. Slowly she pulled it free. A small bundle tied with faded string. The fabric brittle with age. For several seconds she could not move, could not breathe, because some part of her already knew. She untied the string gently. The cloth opened in fragile folds. Inside rested a notebook. Worn leather cover. Edges yellowed, but preserved by darkness. Aloan felt tears rise before she even opened it. She recognized the cover. She had seen her mother writing in this very book at the kitchen table long ago. Hand shaking, she opened the first page. The handwriting was clear, careful, alive. Her mother's voice returning not through memory but ink. The room seemed to disappear around her as she read. Entries describing ordinary days at the library. Children laughing. New books arriving. Small worries about town meetings and quiet disagreements between people who pretended harmony. Then the tone changed. Later pages carried tension between the lines. Mentions of something discovered in old town records. Financial documents that did not match. Land agreements signed in secret years earlier. Names appeared again and again. Respected names. Powerful names. People the town trusted. Aloan's chest tightened. This was not random violence. Not disappearance without reason. Her mother had found something. Something others wanted hidden. She turned pages faster. Breath shallow. Heart racing. One entry written only days before the night she vanished. I cannot stay silent. If the truth is buried, this town will never be free. I will meet him after closing near the river. He says he is ready to confess. The words blurred through rising tears. She turned to the final written page. If anything happens, let this be known. The danger is not a stranger. It is someone everyone sees every day. The sentence ended there. No more entries. No goodbye. Only silence frozen in ink. Aloan closed the notebook slowly, grief and understanding crashing together inside her. Her mother had not simply disappeared. She had been stopped. Because she chose truth. The old man's voice trembled behind her. There is more. She looked up through tears. From another crate he lifted a small tape recorder older than the one sent to her. Beside it lay a second cassette labeled in faded handwriting. Recorded October 14, 1976. Her breath caught painfully. The night itself. The worker near the stairs shifted uneasily but said nothing. The old man handed her the cassette with shaking hands. This was hidden with the notebook, he whispered. I never knew until now. Aloan stared at the fragile plastic. 50 years of silence resting in her palm. If the tape still worked, it might hold the voice her mother went to meet. The confession she believed would change everything. Or it might hold the moment silence was forced forever. Fear wrapped tight around her ribs. Because truth once heard could never be forgotten again. The worker brought down a small portable player from above. Dusty but functional. He placed it on an old crate and stepped back as if not wanting to stand too close to history. Aloan's hands felt almost numb as she inserted the cassette. The click sounded impossibly loud in the small room. For a moment nothing happened. Only the faint hum of the machine. Then sound emerged. Night air moving softly. Footsteps on gravel. 2 people breathing. Her mother's voice clear though tense. You said you would tell the truth. Another voice answered. A man. Older. Shaking. I was afraid. Silence filled with river sound. Her mother again gentle but firm. People deserve to know. The man's breathing grew uneven. If this comes out, everything falls apart. The land. The money. All of it built on a lie. Aloan felt the room tilt around her. This was bigger than one crime. Bigger than one life. Her mother spoke quietly. Then let it fall. Some things must end so others can begin. A long pause followed. Heavy. Uncertain. Then a new sound. Footsteps approaching fast. More than one person. Her mother turning suddenly. Who is there? The recording cracked with movement. A shout. Struggle. The sound of the tape dropping against ground. Voices angry. Panicked. One voice clear above the rest. She cannot leave here alive. Aloan's breath stopped. The tape filled with chaos. Water splashing. A cry cut short. Then only river sound again. Endless. Unmoving. The recording clicked into silence. No one in the room spoke. Even the air felt frozen. Tears slid down Aloan's face without sound. Not only grief now, but truth sharp and undeniable. Her mother had been killed to protect a secret. And the voices on that tape belonged to people the town once trusted. Slowly she lifted her head. Pain still deep, but something stronger rising beneath it. Not anger alone. Something steadier. Resolve. 50 years earlier silence had won. Today it would not. Because the silent witness had finally spoken. And the truth was no longer buried in darkness. For a long time no one in the hidden room moved. The weak yellow light trembled slightly as if even the bulb felt the weight of what had been heard. Dust continued drifting through the air slow and quiet like time refusing to hurry. Aloan remained kneeling beside the open notebook. Her tears had slowed, yet the ache inside her chest felt deeper than before. Not the empty ache she had carried since childhood. This pain had shape. It had meaning. It had truth. 50 years of questions had ended in a single recording. A single moment beside a dark river. A single choice her mother made to stand against silence. She closed her eyes and let one long breath leave her body. For the first time in her life she could imagine that night clearly. Not as mystery. Not as nightmare. But as truth. Her mother had not been lost. She had been brave. The thought did not remove the grief. But it changed the weight of it. Turned sorrow into something steadier. Something that felt almost like pride wrapped in pain. Behind her the old man wiped his eyes without hiding the motion. His voice when it came sounded older than before. The town will never be the same after this. Aloan rose slowly, still holding the notebook, her hands no longer shaking, because uncertainty had been replaced by purpose. It was never meant to stay the same, she said quietly. Silence had protected lies for half a century. Now truth demanded air and light. And truth once spoken could not be buried again. The worker near the stairs shifted uneasily. What happens now? The question felt larger than the room, larger than the town, larger even than the past. Aloan looked at the cassette resting in the player. Proof that could not be argued. Voices that could not be denied. Now people listen, she answered. The words sounded simple, but inside them lived 50 years of waiting. They carried the notebook and the tape back up the narrow staircase. Each step toward daylight felt like emerging from deep water. Breathing becoming easier. Light growing stronger. When Aloan stepped into the library again, morning had fully arrived. Sunlight poured through tall windows touching shelves and wooden floors. The quiet room looked ordinary, peaceful, unaware that history had just changed beneath it. She wondered how many mornings like this had passed while truth slept below. How many lives had continued untouched. How many smiles built on silence. Outside, the town moved through routine. Cars passing slowly. A distant lawn mower starting. Someone opening a shop door. Ordinary sounds. Yet nothing was ordinary anymore. Word spread faster than anyone expected. Small towns carried news the way rivers carried rain. By afternoon, people gathered near the library steps speaking in low, uncertain voices. Some faces showed confusion. Some fear. Some something close to relief. Because deep down many had always known. Silence that heavy could not be innocent. Officials arrived from the county. Then investigators. Careful hands receiving the notebook. Careful ears listening to the recording again and again. Names once spoken with respect now spoken with disbelief. Men long buried in town cemeteries. Legacies praised in old newspapers. Truth moved through the community like slow thunder. Not loud, but impossible to ignore. Aloan watched from a distance beside the old man. She felt strangely calm, as if the storm inside her had already passed. "Are you afraid?" he asked gently. She considered the question honestly. No, not anymore. Fear had lived in uncertainty, in shadows without answers. Now the shadows held light. Even grief felt different. Still painful. Still deep. But no longer empty. Evening approached with soft gold light across the river. The same river that had carried silence for 50 years. Now reflecting a sky that looked almost peaceful. Aloan walked the familiar path once more. The pendant resting in her pocket. The air cool against her face. She stopped near the bend where she had found it. Listening to water moving steadily past. This place would always hold loss. Nothing could change that. But it would also hold truth now. And truth changed the meaning of memory. For the first time she spoke aloud though no one stood beside her. "I know what happened. I know you tried." The words felt small against the open sky. Yet something inside her eased. Like a door finally unlocked. Wind moved gently through the trees. Not an answer. Not a sign. Just quiet presence. And somehow that was enough. Night returned slowly. But it did not feel as dark as before. Because darkness without secrets was only night. Not fear. In the days that followed, the town faced itself. Old stories rewritten. Memorials planned. Apologies spoken too late yet still spoken. Some people resisted. Some denied. But truth remained steady. Patient. Unmoving. Just as it had waited beneath the library floor. Aloan stayed longer than she expected. Helping sort records. Listening to memories from those who had been children long ago. Learning pieces of her mother's life never shared before. She discovered laughter she had forgotten. Kindness others still remembered. Small brave moments that never reached newspapers. Her mother became more than a disappearance. More than tragedy. She became whole again. On her final morning, the sky opened clear and bright. The bus waited near the same cracked sidewalk where she had arrived. Suitcase in hand, she looked back at the quiet street. Nothing appeared dramatic. No music. No grand farewell. Just a town breathing honestly for the first time in decades. The old man stood beside her. "You can visit without fear now," he said. She smiled softly. "I think she would like that." He nodded, understanding who she meant without words. The bus doors opened with a gentle hiss. Before stepping inside, Aloan looked once more toward the river beyond the buildings. For years she believed the past was a chain, something that held life in place. Now she understood something different. Truth does not chain. Silence does. And when truth finally speaks, even after 50 years, it does more than reveal what was hidden. It gives the living permission to move forward. She stepped onto the bus and took a seat by the window. As the town slowly drifted behind her, she felt sadness, but also something new. Something light enough to carry. Peace. Not perfect. Not complete. But real. Outside, the river continued its quiet journey toward places unseen. Carrying memory. Carrying time. Carrying the echo of a voice that refused to stay silent forever. And somewhere between past and future, one simple truth remained. No matter how long darkness waits, even the quietest witness will one day speak.